class really came out of the committee that organizes and works out the tour guide process. And we put this class together to help existing guides and the general population just know more about Holland. And I hope you enjoy it. What I'm looking for is a few more guides. And I've got some sign-up sheets, and if you're interested, I'd like to have your information and stuff. I want to tell you a little bit about tour guides. It's not a hard process. It's a little bit of work to get the script in your head, not memorized, of course. We just tell stories. And it's a good interactive time with tourists. It's really fun. And I think that's the thing I want to convey to you. It really is fun. But if it's not, we shouldn't be doing it. But we want the tourists to have fun, so we have fun in the process. I hope you'll consider that. We're doing extra training for new guides this year. We're going through what we call the expectations class, which takes place on February 11th and February 16th, one of those 2 times, or 18th rather. We'll probably do it again in March if we get more signups. But that class is really just a thorough explanation of what to expect when you become a guide, and also what we expect of guides. And following that, we give you a couple of months to really kind of work through the script and learn the stories, and then work with a mentor guide to polish your idea of how to present it and what to do. Just to make you comfortable and make things work smoothly. And we hope that would start new guides off a little stronger than we possibly have in the past. So if you're interested, please stop me. I'll be at the door afterwards, and I would appreciate you signing up. I don't do the microphone very well, I guess. Okay, any questions? We've got 1 more minute. Alice is looking at me. Yes, sir.
What is the time commitment for a tulip time guide?
Okay, the expectations class is a 1 hour, and usually a couple of 1 hour sessions or 1.5 hour sessions with the mentor. And then there's a lunch on April 12, which that's a couple, 3 hours. And then as a tour guide, you get to sign up for the whole 9 days of the festival, when you can and when you can't guide, and when you'd like to guide. And we try to work that out. We want at least 4 tours, and most of our tours are back-to-back, so that means 4 tours is 2 days. And which days those are, you can tell us, okay? So we're pretty flexible, and we try to work with everybody. And we're able to do that to a pretty good extent. Okay? Any other questions? Yes, sir.
How
Ma'am.
long is the tour?
Pardon?
How long is each tour?
About 65 minutes to 75 minutes. Anything else?
Costumes?
Oh, yes. You have to wear a costume and hopefully wooden shoes, but not necessarily. Particularly if you're a new guide, a lot of them don't have wooden shoes. But we do provide costumes. A lot of us who've been doing it for a couple, 3 years at least start to think about getting one made, but you don't have to. We have costumes, and we'll help you to get the right one to fit, and it works. Anything else? Okay, Alice is really looking at me now. Thank you.
It is really a lot of fun. Is this working?
Yeah.
It is a lot of fun to be a tour guide, and it's a great way to get to know Holland. Please turn off your cell phones if you haven't already done so. And thank you so much for coming again through the cold and snow to the second and last class of Holland Highlights. We have a great lineup of speakers for you today. We're going to hear about Hope College, and we're going to hear something about history in Holland, and finally how Holland's downtown became the award-winning beautiful destination that it is today. Our first speaker is Kate Ralston. And Kate has a handout for you, so if you haven't already gotten one, would you raise your hand? And maybe
Gary, can you open that door?
Kate will give you one. After graduating from Hope College in 2009 with a degree in history education, Kate moved to Ann Arbor, where she taught secondary social studies in a small Christian school.
Oh, that's a tulip.
Upon moving back to Holland in 2013, she joined Hope's admissions office as a campus visit coordinator, planning over 2,000 individual visits per year, as well as larger group visit events. Currently, Kate is serving the college as the Associate Director of Alumni and Family Engagement. Kate and her husband, James, also Hope class of 2009, love living on the south side of Holland. We're looking forward to hearing about Hope College from Kate. Thank you.
And don't even scream.
That's it.
Okay.
Do I have to?
32.
My class is told us to 11.
Okay. Okay, so I'll come on. We're good. Yeah.
Okay.
Hello? Oh. This is magical. I wish I had had this when I was a teacher. As Alice mentioned, I'm Kate Ralston. I'm the Associate Director of Alumni and Family Engagement, which I'm still getting used to as a very long title. Pretty newly minted, but I have been back at Hope for a couple years now, and I've gotten to hang out in admissions for a while, and now moving over and hanging out with the other end of the spectrum, from prospective students to alumni and families, which has been great. So just because I'm curious, raise your hand if you went to Hope. Fantastic. Fantastic. That totally counts. Raise your hand if you have a family member, anyone older, younger than you, who attended Hope. Sweet. All right, raise your hand if you have, okay, do like a quick count in your head, more than 5 people in your family total who have gone to Hope. More than 5 people? How many?
4 generations.
4 generations? Fantastic. Anyone else more than 5 people? All right. Okay, remind me at the end, I've got something for you. Because one of my cool parts of my new job is I get to give stuff away. So, all right, and another question, I have another little gift for someone who has the newest family member. So a grandchild or great-grandchild, anything like that, anyone have a really new one? Within the past year? Within the past year? How close? 7 months? Anyone younger than 7 months? You win! All right, I will get you a gift too. Actually, why I've got so much time right now. I feel a little connected to this, but a little bit. Class of 2000 question mark. So we'll figure that out. Okay, perfect. All right, your gift I don't want to throw to you, so just we'll grab in a second. Okay, so I'm gonna get started just by talking about kind of the new stuff that's going on at Hope, because I know that several of you have attended Hope, many of you have been in Holland for a while, and if you've been a tour guide before for Tulip Time, you've probably kind of gotten a little bit more of the history of Hope, and you probably, some of you may know the history of Hope even better than I do. I graduated in 2009. So I want to talk to you a little bit about what's going on on campus, the changes that have occurred, because if you've been around campus a little bit, you may have noticed there have been a lot of changes that have gone on. So essentially in 2011, while I was off in Ann Arbor, they made an announcement that they were going to start a campaign called the Greater Hope Campaign. You may have heard of it, you may have donated to it. You may be one of the 21,000 people who ended up donating to it. It was the largest campaign that we've ever tried to accomplish. Our goal is $175 million, which to me, 2 years out of college, seemed like they were just asking for $40 billion quadrillion. Like, are they kidding? There's no way. At this point, we've raised $203.5 million, which is such a huge testament to me to look and see all these 21,000 people who participated in recognizing that Hope is a place that they really wanted to invest in. So exceeded our goal by quite a bit. That ended up allowing for 10 endowed faculty and staff appointments, which is fantastic. So we've been able to add those positions to our college straight from the Greater Hope campaign. And also, we ended up with 182 endowed scholarships for students. So that's a huge increase, not just our buildings, but also actual investments in the people of Hope, which has been great. So one of the biggest things that you may have noticed is the Jack H. Miller Performing Arts Center. That was dedicated in October of 2005. It is right at this point in this beginning of its life is really starting to become fully operational at this point. So even though it was dedicated, it wasn't necessarily completely finished, but we're really starting our first season of being able to have performances and things inside of the Jack H. Miller. It is 64,000 square feet. It has 2 performing venues, the large performing concert hall and then a recital hall. Offices, meeting rooms, rehearsal spaces. It's actually soundproof, which Nykerk Hall was not. So you can play the piano in one room, and in the next room, if someone's practicing their electric guitar, you don't hear each other. It's amazing. There's space in between the walls that create this soundproofedness, which is really great. And then there's also a custom-built organ with 3,092 pipes in it. Those range from the size of a pencil to 20 feet tall. So quite the extensive organ that was pieced together over several days on our campus. And also it's the home of the music department, which was very exciting for the music department to move from Nykerk Hall, which was lovely, but maybe not necessarily where you'd want to go to work every day. And now it's to the Jack H. Miller. And then there's also going to be 2 tulip time shows that take place in that venue. So you might want to pass that along to the guests of the town as well. The Kreisinga Art Museum is another big addition to our campus that has been completed. It was dedicated in September of 2015. It is 15,000 square feet and features 2 exhibition halls, and then a reception lobby. Have any of you been there yet? Beautiful. If you haven't been there, it still has the inaugural exhibition going on right now, which is Past, Present, East, West, I think is what it's called. And it features kind of collections from our founding collection. One side is American and European, and one side is Asian, pretty split. And then it has from the past, from our collection dates back to around the 1600s and then to the present. So it's a really good kind of overview of the collection that we have. Our collection has about 1,000 pieces in it. And so right now it's just kind of a sampling of those artistic pieces, but a really great thing. The Kreisinga Art Museum is designed to be just that, an actual museum, not just a hall for students that are majoring in art. So we're wanting it to be a resource to West Michigan as a whole. We want to offer our resources to K through 12 schools, other colleges and universities, community members. We want that to be something that people are able to come in. In fact, we just had an event. I don't know if you've heard, but adult coloring is now a thing. It's awesome. I'm totally like on the bandwagon with it. But they actually just had an event for any community member who wanted to come into the art museum and use their space and do adult coloring. And they had snacks, and it was fantastic. So lots of events like that will be happening there. Let's see. It has been primarily funded with a lead gift from the Kreisingas, who are 1952 alumni of Hope, but then a 1968 alumni who actually is from the Netherlands, which is kind of a fun connection to Tulip Time. He was the one who really designed and created the building, which is supposed to be designed to kind of reflect the shape of a painter's palette. So if you've seen the museum, it's kind of a bean shape, kind of curved. It's supposed to kind of reflect and bring that sort of thought from the painter's palette too. Let's see, moving on to Phelps Hall renovation, which is my favorite so far. Phelps Hall is our dining hall on campus, and it was renovated all through last summer really, and opened, I mean, days before students got here. The first day, I think, that they were open was the first day of freshmen that were here. So the Phelps Hall renovation, Opened at the beginning of the 2014 semester. If you haven't been there yet, it's a completely different space. It's absolutely beautiful. There's a fireplace now. There's no more scramble system, so there's actual lines and stuff. It's a little more organized, which is great. And actually, after the renovation, we've now gone up to 80% participation in our meal plan, which is actually pretty unheard of with area colleges. We've done a lot of studies with colleges like us in the area and throughout the country. 80% is huge for students who are wanting to participate in the meal plan. Obviously, it's required pretty much for students who are freshmen and sophomores living on campus, but we have students who are seniors that are not living on our campus that are still choosing to eat in Phelps Hall because the food quality is so good and it's a community thing. We really want our students to eat on campus because we're a family and families eat dinner together. And those are some of my greatest memories of being a student. There's now booths and areas that you can sit with just one other person if you're having a meeting, and still those long tables that Durfee Hall always seems to fill up for the entire time of open hours for dinner. We also added, it's a good thing we added space because so many students want to eat there. There's now 700 seats. We added 100 people in our capacity when we renovated it. We serve 800,000 meals every year, school year, and 90,000 meals to guests of the college during the summer. So we're knocking on the door of 1 million meals a year, which is pretty great. I probably participate in like several of those. We also are working to be a little bit more sustainable and efficient, a little more earth-friendly at Phelps. So we ultimately have decided to be a trayless system, which means that you grab something in your hand and then you go sit down, and if you want more, you go get more. It cuts down on food waste quite a bit because if all students were like me, I just filled my tray instead of thinking of filling my plate. So ultimately, it allows us to cut down on that, but also saves us 120,000 gallons of water a year from not having to wash those trays and extra dishes that end up on those trays. We also have made huge bounds on students that have specific diets that they're trying to, need to, or trying to adhere to. There's sections just for vegans, just for vegetarians, gluten-free, allergy information. There's sections that everything is Ziploc closed, so they know exactly what is in those because there's been a huge increase in special diets. Even within the past couple of years, it's been really amazing, the allergies that are coming in. So lots of different options for them, which is fantastic. One of my coworkers has about 80 allergies, and she eats there almost every day because there's so many options for her. Also, we're starting to compost or donate excess food on a daily basis to community kitchens, which is great. Then the Jim and Marty Bultman Student Center is right next to my office, so every day I get to check on their progress. They're doing great, and it's cold out, and they were there this morning when I got in at 7:30. So they're doing great at building a 45,000 square foot facility that will actually be donated to, or dedicated to student use, which we haven't had a building for quite a while. So the DeWitt Center, which is where I work now, was built for that purpose in 1971. But does anyone know what happened in 1980 that changed that? The fire in Admiralty Hall, which had housed our administrative offices. When that burned down, a lot of those offices moved over to the DeWitt Center and therefore took much of the space that students would be able to have. One thing that I think is amazing is that I never heard any student complain about it. There's not a lot of complaint of, oh, we don't have our own space, oh, we don't get to do this, we don't have this anymore, there's no bowling alley in the basement of DeWitt, now it's a bookstore, okay? There hasn't been a lot of complaining, but there's been so much celebration about the idea of having this new building. It will take the spot of where Nykerk Hall was. Now that the music department has moved to Jack H. Miller, we will now be able to fill in that Nykerk Hall with the student center. It will have a chapel, a new chapel in it with beautiful stained glass windows. It will have a living room area that students can kind of drop their stuff, soft seating, fireplace, that sort of thing. It will have a flexible meeting space that will have a stage, so even more performing arts availabilities there. It will be completely dedicated to to students. There will be very few administrative offices that move over there. So even though I'm really hoping that I get to have an office there, I don't think I actually will ever get to have one. So, which is great though, because it's for the students. Let's see. We're shooting to have it completed by spring of 2017. So who knows what it'll look like around tulip time, or if you'll be able to get a visual from the trolleys. But at this point, there is a foundation going in. So there is something you can see, at least from if you're standing right next to it. So who knows what it'll look like. It'll have another year before it'll be completed when you're doing tulip time tours right now. But by the next time, it'll be done. So at least the theory is that. So another new change that you may have noticed is that we have a new website. Which has been fantastic. We started work on that in 2013. Our old website was over a decade old, which I know doesn't sound that old, but apparently that's like ancient in website age. So the new website was launched a couple of months ago. The main pages were all overhauled. So the main kind of landing page and then admissions and athletics were overhauled. Now they're starting to go through phase 2, which will be throughout the 2015-2016 school year. They're redoing all the departments, all the offices. So you'll notice that you might go to a website one day. If you're going to the history department, it might look one way, and then the next day it'll be completely changed. That will happen throughout this school year. And it's been fantastic for kind of finding new information. Obviously, you have to learn that new system. But the goal of the website was really to make things a little bit easier and simpler. It's got a new events calendar, which will be really helpful for you. It'll show you everything that's going on campus during tulip time and just throughout the school year. And then there's also a new search engine. Has anyone tried the new search on the website? As soon as you start typing in, it takes over your entire screen and gives you a million options, which is fantastic. It'll really help you find what you're looking for on our website. And then there's also a new online course catalog. If any of you are looking for classes or anything like that outside of HASP, everything is online for the registrar's office too. One thing that I've been learning a little bit more about is the connection between Holland and Hope and the economic impact that we have on each other, which is sweet. $213 million a year is what the impact of Hope College has on Holland, which is fantastic. My family, my husband's family, they're big Hillsdale alum. Every time I go to Hillsdale, I notice how much the people of Hillsdale hate the students of Hillsdale, and kind of vice versa. And here it's just so incredibly awesome to me that the people of Holland love the Hope students, and we put up signs in our windows when they come back, and vice versa. The students love the community members. And so I think that that's shown in just kind of the people and the money that flows back and forth. So obviously money is not everything, but $1 in $40 that's spent in Holland is spent because of Hope College. There's 1,000 jobs that have been created because of Hope College in Holland. There's been $92 million that have been pumped into the community just from construction projects. So we definitely are happy to be here, and hopefully Holland's happy to have us. 1 in 40 people are here because of Hope. I'm one of those people. And then Hope students contribute 102,000 hours of volunteering in their community a year. That's been estimated how much that's worth. It's worth about $1 million from just their volunteering hours from these students. And then something that I always tell prospective students about is how into the athletics our community members are. We hold the record for home attendance in several sports, number 1 being men's basketball. We have the highest average attendance of home games of every Division III school in the country. And it's significantly higher. I think it's like 730 people more than second place. So we end up with 2,331 fans in the DeVos Fieldhouse for our men's basketball games. We average 930 fans. We're also first place for women's basketball, but there's a big difference there. So get out to women's basketball games. Coach Mo would be thrilled. And then we also are we are first place in attendance for volleyball, and then we're in the top 5 for men's and women's soccer. So people who don't go to Hope still, or weren't alums at Hope, still come to our games, and we love that. It's so fantastic. And then we also have our students, athletes that are kind of working in our community. Our basketball teams host Special Olympians. Our softball and baseball teams volunteer for the Miracle League field, and then they mentor local elementary students, which is fantastic. And we also have a football player that started a new athletic stripe. So if you have lightly used athletic gear, he takes that and then distributes it to students who wouldn't be able to play a sport otherwise, which is great. All right, the last part is just an overview of the college. This is stuff that you guys might already know, so I left it for last just in case they maybe had time. And I apparently have some time. Okay, I have 2 minutes. Okay, so here's the deal. We have like over 80 majors and programs. There's kind of something for everyone. And frankly, if we don't have something that you want, we just piece it together to make it work. That's the great thing about going to a smaller school. We actually can kind of work with you and make it happen for you. We have the Great Performance Series. We, in our Arts and Humanities Department, we were the first in the country and still one of the only schools in the country that are accredited in all 4 fine arts. We've got the Natural and Applied Sciences, an amazing pre-med program, and then awesome social sciences, fantastic education department, regularly rated first in the state, all that fun stuff. I'm here to tell you that it's amazingly effective. And then we've got 200 study abroad programs. We're really pushing that. Vienna Summer School, some of you attended. Tons of different options. I work with a ton of student workers, and they've gone all over the place. I've got 2 that are in Ireland right now, absolutely loving it. I've got a student who just got back from Turkey for the semester. Just experiences that you wouldn't be able to get any other place. And then we've got, we are ranked 100 in the best national liberal arts colleges in the United States by U.S. News and World Report. We are one of the colleges that change lives, which is a book that if you haven't read, it's fantastic. It highlights schools that really will turn your life around. It's a very small club that we get to belong to, and it's the reason my husband ended up here. So thank God for that book. And then we also have a really high caliber of students coming in. Our middle 50% of students have ACT scores that range from 24 to 29, which is well above the national average. And then their GPA ranges from 3.5 to 4.0 in that middle 50%, which means 25% of the students coming in have GPAs higher than 4.0, which can be done now. And then for our athletics, we have 11 varsity sports for each men and women. We're national champions in volleyball and women's basketball, and we also have national champions in men's and women's swimming and men's and women's track, which people don't talk about quite as much, but those are individual national awards. Right now our enrollment is just over 3,400, which is fantastic and huge. We've been over 3,300 for 4 years. We've been over 3,200 for 10 years. People want to come to Hope, which is awesome. They come from 41 states. 31% are outside of Michigan. So if people are always saying, oh, everyone just from Holland and Michigan end up at Hope, a third of our students are from outside of Michigan, and that's something that we're pushing to have happen even more. We've got 46 countries represented, which is more than we have flags outside of Martha Miller. And we have 12.6% of the incoming class last year were students of some sort of minority descent, which is fantastic to have a little bit more diversity at Hope. And then we are graduating at about a 69% 4-year rate, which is pretty great considering a lot of colleges are switching to just plan on taking 5 years. So 69% graduate in 5 years. We have a 90% retention rate. People want to stay at Hope once they get here. In fact, I was honestly May 3, 2009, one of the worst days of my life when I graduated. But 95% of our 2014 grads are either in grad school or working in a job that they love within 6 months of graduating. So that's kind of a really brief overview of the college, but I'd be happy to give you any more if you've got the time later. And also I do have some stuff over here if you want to grab it at the end. I just some results of the graduate survey, my card. I'm also the host of the Holland Rivalry Party on February 20th. If you want to come watch the Hope Calvin game with me, my husband and I are the hosts. Buffalo Wild Wings on West Shore Drive. come hang out with me. I've got some invitations over there for you. How'd I do? Okay, I'm within the time. So, yeah,
Would you repeat those graduation rates?
I sure would. So we've got a 69% graduation rate within 4 years. And then we've got a 90% retention rate. And 95% of our graduating class is employed or in grad school within 6 months. Any questions? I've got 10 minutes for questions. I've got 5 minutes for questions.
Did you go to the girls' game last night?
I did not, and I did not contribute to the
32 points.
Oh, wow. Go Coach Mo.
That's against Calvin.
That's good, yes.
What
Yeah.
is the stated tuition cost?
That's a great question. It breaks down based on lots of different factors. I think we were at a little over 36,000. This
37.5 last year.
okay, then we're not. It's on the admissions website. And are you talking about room and board included?
No, just tuition.
Okay, then we are probably still somewhere around 37. With room and board, we're knocking on the door of 40,000.
And how many students get some kind of financial aid?
That is a great question that I will have to get back to you on. That's an admissions question, and unfortunately, that wasn't my realm of admissions. However, the vice president of admissions is at financial aid right now. I walked over with him. So I will ask him and grab my card and email me, and I'm fantastic at finding that out because I know who to bother. But it is well above 50%. We have, I was very pleased when I came here because I was paying on my own and ended up being pretty okay. We do try to help our students out as much as possible.
About 24 of us came by bus from Freedom Village to eat at Phelps Hall last week.
Oh, fun!
And one of the students said to one of the workers, which was repeated to us, "Is it Grandparents' Day?"
But they were probably thrilled to have you. So, sorry about that. Yes.
You mentioned that were there 182 scholarship programs available?
182 that were added on
That were
just because of the
added
Greater
on.
Hope. So I think we're at
Fabulous.
700 endowed scholarships.
Wow.
And that would just be within our college. Obviously, we accept other scholarships and that sort of thing. And that's separate from financial aid. So lots of different endowed scholarships that are available for students.
Great. And I might add, I think it's only $10,000 that will start a scholarship.
Yes. And we would love to talk to you about it if you're wanting to have one created. 10. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yes.
There's a lot of attention now to the level of student debt on graduates. Do you know what the figure is for Houghton?
I don't. And that's another thing that I can get back to you on if you email me. It would be pretty easy for me to find out. Obviously, I graduated in 2009, which was kind of the worst time ever to graduate from college. And ultimately, we were kind of the last generation or the last couple of years that we were okay with taking out student loans. I will tell you that we have gotten very creative with students who are able to work on campus to pay off their loans. We're trying to be as responsible as possible with students. A lot of students are deferring. They're getting in and then deferring for 1 year in order to be able to end up at Hope. And we will honor that, their acceptance. And so students are doing that to be able to make sure that they're going to be financially stable when they end up at Hope. But still they end up at Hope. It's just kind of the journey they take in order to be as successful as possible when they're here. So, any other questions?
Of the 102,000 students that volunteered those hours, are they doing that through a class or on their own or a combination?
Most of those, so our education classes and that sort of thing that require the field placement in a school, those are not counted into those hours. So, the value of that would probably go up even more. But those are purely volunteering. They're not getting necessarily class credit for it. So that would be CASA or Dance Marathon, Time to Serve, Day of Service, which is coming up this Saturday for our sesquicentennial. Say that, not just. Our sesquicentennial this year, which is the 150th year of Hope. We're celebrating our 150th birthday all year long because we were chartered on May 14, 1866. But we have a day of service coming up where students will be all throughout Holland serving the community. But then also, if you're an alum and want to participate in that too, you can sign up online and we'll send you a t-shirt to wear while you're volunteering on Saturday. So lots of options for students to participate in volunteering opportunities.
Okay, Kate, thank you so much. And Hope College is one of the reasons that Holland is such a great place to live. I know I see all of you at concerts and plays, and it really brings a lot to the community.
Thank you for having me, everybody.
So Kate has a prize to give out, is that right? To the
So you can take your notes on a nice Hope College.
And as she mentioned, there's lots of interesting things about Hope here that you can pick up. And if you didn't get the notes, be sure to pick those up before you go out. Our next speaker is Connie Locker. And Connie is no stranger to HASP because she did a very nice program, HASP class for us last fall. And some of us have gone on her walking tours of the historic district. How many of you have done that? Okay, very participatory and lots of fun. Connie is Education and Outreach Manager at the Holland Museum, where she supervises lifelong education, public programs, community outreach, and exhibits. Prior to joining the staff at the museum, she coordinated programs and special events at the Edsel and Eleanor Ford House in Grosse Pointe Shores. She also worked for the city of Ypsilanti for several years, where she staffed the local historic district, administered grants for the planning department, and helped foster partnerships between city officials and community organizations. Connie earned a Bachelor of Arts in History from Kent State University and a Master of Science in Historic Preservation from Eastern Michigan University. Connie is passionate about making history exciting, relevant, and accessible to all.
Get this on. Thank you. All right. Woo. Technology, right? I'm a history major, I can't handle this. All right, well, it's so nice to be here today. I see quite a few familiar faces in the crowd, and I'm excited to see you all again. And I'm even more excited for the opportunity to be able to talk about what the museum's working on. When Alice first approached me about doing this presentation, she said maybe talk about some of the history of homes and things like that, but I really wanted to expand also into what the museum's working on, because I feel like we don't get to talk about that enough. We get a lot of questions about how the museum is doing, and truth be told, we're doing a lot of awesome things, and I love being able to share that. So I'm going to go a little bit into that today. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, so yes. Historically speaking, and I'm talking about all museums in general here, not just the Holland Museum, but historically speaking, you would visit the local history museum and you would see a bunch of old stuff. And that's what you kind of expected. You didn't really expect to connect too deeply with objects other than to go, huh, that's kind of cool or kind of interesting. There was a lot of focus on broad history, so you see a lot of timelines. See a lot of detailed interpretive panels that kind of go on a little bit too long, a lot of reading involved. And of course, those ever-present do not touch labels and the ropes across the doorways and across chairs and things like that. So museums traditionally have been very inwardly focused and very resistant to change. We kind of like what we're doing. We're scholars, we're historians, we love history, but we don't know how to convey it very well to the public and to make people that, like many of my friends growing up, hated history and hated learning and memorizing all those dates and names, trying to make it interesting and relevant to their lives and get them excited about it too. So all this means that with our traditional way of doing things, people saw us as something like this, right? And that's sad because I really see us as strong, as outgoing, as cool and hip and with it, more kind of like this, right? Yes, that's Abraham Lincoln with muscles. Yeah, the tat is great. So what I see as our challenge, and what the museum sees as our challenge in general, is how can we help our guests make personal connections with these historic objects that we have? And the images that you see on the screen right now are actually 3 examples of really cool ways we've been able, or people have been able to connect to our objects. On the far left is a pair of old shoes, and those are actually specially made shoes. They don't have feet in them, they kind of have like metal supports. And those were made for a woman in Holland that didn't have feet. And she was able to live a very full life. She was an artist, she was very accomplished. And those are in our collection. Those were actually seen by a student on a tour, and right away her first thought was of her sister who is disabled and can't walk. And she has very similar shoes that are braces to help her kind of stand upright. So she wrote a very moving essay as part of one of her classes that was at the museum about that. And it was really powerful for us because we see a lot of these things as Dutch history or very focused on that one person, but we don't think about how just looking at an object might impact other people. The one on the far right is an immigration trunk that's on display in our main galleries. And a very similar thing happened with a different student who was actually born in Mexico and immigrated here with her family. And she right away saw that immigration trunk. She read the label about how these immigrants had traveled to Michigan and had packed up everything they owned in a trunk. And right away she thought of her own trip to the United States, and she was really moved by the display on that. And then in the middle, we have the grand piano that is in the permanent galleries as well, and there was a student that was very moved by that because he sees piano as a representation of all his hard work in learning how to play the piano. And actually recently, our volunteer coordinator did something really cool with that piano. She played Space Oddity, David Bowie's song, after David Bowie died, and we put that out on social media as a really unique way to honor a very 20th century musician with an antique piano that you wouldn't expect to be playing Space Oddity. So just some of the ways that people have been able to connect with our objects. So we want to make that happen more often. And how can we do that? How can we begin to do that? I guess in other words, we want to be somebody who makes everybody feel like a somebody. So what we're first focusing on is impactful experiences for students. And I should say, and many of you in the room I've told before, I'm relatively new to the museum. I came here last March, and I was the first full-time educator that the museum had had in 6 years. So we really unfortunately lost that connection with the schools that we once had, and we weren't in the classroom enough, we weren't getting as many field trips, and we were kind of stale and not very relevant to what the teachers needed from us. So within the last year or so, we've really been focusing on expanding our options. And first we started with this great pre-K and kindergarten program called What is a Museum? And for kids that have never been to a museum before, children's museum or otherwise, it's a great introduction. We do a story time, we pass out historic objects for them to take a look at, we give a personalized tour, focus mostly on just discovery. What do you see? What is fun for you? They love the carousel when you first come into the gallery because it lights up and spins. But things like that. And at the very end of the program, we ask them to fill out this response that says, if I worked at a museum, I would display, and I bet probably no one can guess what Gabby displayed, but she told me it was a giant rock and 2 photos. So that's what she would display. We also have been doing a lot of work with elementary students, and we still have a long way to go as well, but we do classroom outreach opportunities, and this particular photo is from Wakazu Elementary, their Explorer Day last year. So we talked about the Native Americans that were in the Holland area, gave them an opportunity to practice trading with each other and see the benefits of bartering. And they also constructed their own canoes for a little science project to see how their canoe might float. That was fun. We've done quite a bit of work with middle school, with the Stream School, that was a partnership of the Outdoor Discovery Center and Hamilton Community Schools. And we've been doing a lot with high school and college as well. The I Challenge You program out of the Ottawa area ISD, they came and helped helped work with us last summer about how we could reach out to our community more, and they did a great job. That's actually a photo of them right there and various things from the education collection on their heads. We're actually really pleased to announce that we're able to work with them again this spring on implementing some of their ideas. So kind of keep your eyes up for that. I just started meeting with the same students weekly, and they're really excited to be able to put this to practical use and get some actual project planning experience, which is really valuable for a high schooler, especially I didn't learn that until grad school. We also have, we've worked with the ProMesa program out of Ferris State University, and that was the program where we took kids through our collections, and their final project was to write essays about how objects in the collection impacted their own lives, which I highlighted a couple just a minute ago. This program is really great because it helps kids improve their scores in math and reading and ultimately earn up to 12 college credits by the end of the summer. So we were really honored to be able to participate in that program, and we're planning on doing that again this year. And we've done several other programs with other pilot programs with other high schools, including West Ottawa, which the one in the upper right there is an example. We had an immigration and caricature exhibit on display for several months from last July kind of through November, I believe. And the students had an opportunity to visit. We had over 400 freshmen come through in one day. And yeah, yeah. You can tell who the former teachers are, probably the noises that were made just now. But it was chaotic, but it was really fun. They had an opportunity to look at the immigration and caricature exhibit, which talked about the wave of migration in the early 1900s, late 1800s. And then the partner exhibit that's documented the stories of Latinos in Holland. And they compared and contrasted the immigration experiences and ultimately displayed their final project called What is an American alongside our immigration and caricature exhibit. And we had this great exhibit opening for them, and they came through with their parents and had the opportunity to see their works alongside the formal exhibit. And I think it was really powerful for them to show them that their thoughts and their research is valued and worthy of display in a museum too. We've also done quite a bit on improving our exhibits. While our exhibits have always been really exciting, they've not always been open to the masses as far as, the long panels I was talking about before, lots of reading involved. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we're trying to personalize it a little bit more to the people that are coming to our museum and making it more accessible for all ages and not just people that are already interested in history. So the first image you see on the top left and then the center image there, that big long one, are actually both images from our current exhibit, which is called Toy Stories, the toy collection of Tom and Meryl Taylor. And I actually have I should mention this at the beginning, I have a list of what is currently happening at the museum on the table there, so you can pick that up on your way out today. But this toy exhibit has been really well received. It's been really popular with all generations, which is exciting. And we've seen a lot of parents and grandparents bringing their kids in to play and to learn. The exhibit features old toys, vintage toys from the late 1800s all the way through the 1950s. And there's an opportunity to actually play with some wind-up toys in Mark's room, our interactive room, and play some board games in the galleries. And the middle image there is our post-it wall, which asks, this showcases some of Tom and Meryl Taylor's favorite toys. What was your favorite toy growing up? And we had preschoolers in the galleries just like so excited to share their favorite toy. So we're actually, the original board has been buried in post-it notes right now. So people of all ages sharing, which is exciting. The image on the far right is an image from our documented exhibit, which I mentioned was our partner exhibit to Immigration and Caricature. And it's about the Latino experience in Holland. And it was completed by local high school students. There were about 6 students that worked with us. They went out into the community, they interviewed people from the Latino community, and the final exhibit is basically just a series of questions and then responses in both Spanish and English to kind of highlight the diversity of the experience of different people. Both the Toy Stories exhibit and the documented exhibit are open at least through the end of February. We're hoping to extend the toy exhibit a little longer than that, but we haven't confirmed it, so ideally it would be still open during tulip time. So we'll keep you updated on that, I'm sure. And then on the bottom left is an image from our Dutch galleries. And I'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but what we've been trying to work on with our Dutch galleries, we have amazing docents that know so much about the history of the art, can really convey it really well, and they're so great. And the only problem is that people still feel intimidated to go in there. I know, I felt so much more comfortable personally after I took an art class in college going into art because I felt like I was more worthy of knowing what was happening in the painting. So we're trying to kind of make people feel a little bit more comfortable with that through doing programs like the National Slow Art Day, where we pick 3 paintings and people take 15 minutes each to kind of just observe and look, and then we come together as a group and discuss what's happening. So they start realizing that, yes, just by observing I can learn quite a bit about what's going on in a painting. We also have open sketching happening, and where that people can just come in any day that we're open and sketch in the Dutch galleries. And we have we've been focusing a little bit on something called visual thinking strategies. So instead of, like, if I were leading a tour, because I'm not nearly as knowledgeable as many of our docents are in the Dutch galleries, I would focus on what the visitor is seeing. So what's happening in this painting? Can you tell me about what's happening? And start to get an open conversation going, much like my walking tours, where we talk a lot about the history of the community together as a group. So that's some of that. And then public programs. We've really been doing a lot of public programs lately, much more than I've done at any other job, and I think it's awesome because we're trying to be very diverse in our programming. So for example, this program, Borrow a Backpack, this is focused on kids, and we have 2 backpacks right now. We're looking at expanding into more. But for kids that are bored, maybe over holiday break or maybe on the weekends, their parents can bring them to the museum and they can check out a backpack that gives them activities and stories to read in the galleries. It even includes a historic object from our education collection that kids can look at, explore, and then maybe try and find one on display in the gallery. So it's really enhances the experience, especially for kids. We also have a really exciting series of programs coming up called Behind the Scenes. And I piloted this with the HASP group, and it was so well received that we decided to do this as an actual program. So we're doing behind the scenes collection storage, and I have more information about the dates for that. This is very, very cool, and it doesn't happen a lot, where we offer people the opportunity to come through our actual collection storage in the basement of the Armory building, where we store over 30,000 objects that aren't normally on display. And our registrar, Rick, takes people through, talks a lot about the history behind the objects, and he's just generally really great, encourages a lot of questions. We also have a behind-the-scenes exhibit, so if you've ever wondered how we make the magic happen, how we go from having a bunch of old toys to a really cool exhibit, that's how that happens, and I kind of take people through the process. So that's always fun. And then we do a lot of holiday programming. This is kids at our Halloween program. We got 800 kids in our permanent galleries, which was crazy. But we have, Princess Leia and a witch and Batman, Batgirl, and all kinds of stuff. So that was fun. We do a lot for Halloween, for Christmas, and for Easter. We participate in festivals like the Water Festival. This is an image from that. We're very active in Tulip Time. We'll be in Kinderplots this year, and other things as well. And then, of course, our really popular walking tour series. This is an image from a paper, because I never took a good picture while I was actually talking. So we're planning on bringing those back again this year, and maybe with some new exciting topics too. So look around May for that to start coming out. The last thing I wanted to go over before the end was our social media efforts. And I've really been lucky to have a volunteer coordinator that has had an internship in social media, and she's really good. So she helps kind of guide us in how to post things and be exciting. So we've been doing a lot. These are all examples from Facebook, but we also have Pinterest and Flickr and things like that. But we kind of like to brag about what's happening. So those are those preschoolers on the first left there, posting things to the Toy Stories exhibit wall about their favorite toys. In the center, you see a woman sketching in the Dutch galleries, and we're bragging that we have plenty of green landscapes now that it's snowing out. So if you're ever in the mood for green. And finally, on the far right, we've been sharing a lot of photos from our archives for really the first time. And we've been doing a lot of it, sometimes 1 or 2 a day. So this one is a couple of men in front of a local business's truck, and it got, like 1,600 people reached, which is incredible. And people were commenting, "That's my uncle, that's my brother." It was really exciting to see just how people really connect with these things. So that is really the long and the short of it. A really quick highlight on everything that I've been working on, we've all been working on at the museum, and all the places we're trying to go. So I have my contact information up here. I also have, again, the list of programs and my business cards if you need to get in touch with me. And if you have any questions, just let me know.
question is, how can people, are you always, and I'm assuming you're always looking for new docents, can you just give people a little bit of
Yes, I actually-
what you're doing for the docents?
I should have talked about that in my presentation. Thank you. Yeah, we are always looking for new docents, not just docents, but any kind of volunteers. And our docents really, we really strongly rely on them to provide an excellent visitor experience. We did this survey a few years ago, and we scored the highest that the surveyor had ever seen on docent satisfaction. We have a fantastic group that really knows the history of the community and are able to train newcomers very well. And so we really have a strong and vibrant program. We do monthly meetings with our docents. We do some field trips. That's what we're looking into doing this year. So visiting other museums, talking about what other people are doing, and really trying to see what our docents' feedback is on where we can go in the future. So if you're interested at all, you can let me know, and I'll pass the information along.
Are your hours longer than
Moment.
Yes. Yes, and I don't have, she asked if our hours are longer during tulip time.
We didn't hear the question.
Yeah, she asked if our hours were longer during tulip time. And yes, they are. They're much longer. I believe we're open from 9 to 6 during tulip time. I can double check that for you and let you know, but yes, we're open much later. And we're open all days during that week.
Even Sunday?
Yes, even Sunday.
Jane?
With the trolley tours, will everyone who purchases a ticket be able to go through the museum and the Kapan House again?
Yes. Yes, we've arranged that again this year. I know the trolley is stopping at a different place, but we've just kind of adjusted our hours accordingly. And the trolley package will still include the stop at the museum and the stop at the Kapan House.
At one time, if you were a Holland resident, on Mondays you could get in free. Is that still true?
Well, we're not open on Mondays anymore. Yeah, but and again, I've been here since last March, so that wasn't offered when I came in. I know it was offered in the past. I think after the millage happened, we were no longer offering that. So unfortunately, yeah. But we do offer discounts for seniors, which is always nice, and students.
Since our booth is moved, will the museum be a hop-on, hop-off place?
I believe so.
The answer to that is yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just one more plug. To become a family member, you get 5 free tickets or 5 free admissions. And I think it's only like $30 or $35 for a family membership. And it's a wonderful, wonderful way to support the museum.
Yes, it is. Actually, that's a great point. And I always like talking about that too, because if I see a family coming in of 4 people, it's actually almost cheaper to buy the family membership, and then you get to come back. We also, for our members, we offer free admission to many of our programs. So a lot of the programs I mentioned are $5 a person, members free. So if you are a member, you can take advantage of all of those behind-the-scenes tours, really cool things happening for free. Yeah.
Do you have reciprocity with any other museums?
Do we have reciprocity with any other museums? Not at this time, but I know we're kind of starting to look into that. We're right now in the process of restructuring our membership and taking a look at how we interact with other museums. So it's a goal for the future. Yeah.
What has been the impact of the millage defeat, and is there are there plans to bring back another millage request?
The best person to talk about that is actually my boss, Chris Shires. But I can say from my conversations with him, right now we're not planning on like this year or anything like that, doing that. But I think possibly in the future. The millage loss was hard, but we, as a result, actually, I was hired to kind of help connect with the community. So maybe it was a good thing for me. So instead of going along as we had been, the millage really caused us to focus on how can we improve, how can we be more relevant to our community. So that's the direct result. These programs are the direct result of that, and trying to be more relevant to our community.
Just keep the microphone.
I just thought of something else that's really, really neat. You know, for the many years that I've been a docent at the museum, there are the chains across the doors at the Capon House, and you could not go into the room. Well, those are down now in most rooms, and it is such an incredible experience to actually be able to walk into those rooms. You feel like, you know, my grandmother was a very good friend of Lavina Capon, who made it possible for the HASP, for the city of Holland to have the Capon House. And it's if you haven't been to the Capon House in a long time, also if you become a member of the museum, you have a pass to go into the Capon House for their programs as well.
And that is true. We've been we've been increasing the accessibility of the Capon House. So while during tulip time we're still going to have to rope those places off just for the safety of the artifacts, because of the volume of people. For regular tours, people are able to go into the room, walk around. There's even a couple of pieces of furniture that even before I got there were okay to sit on. So you can kind of experience the room as the Capon family might have.
I really enjoyed the walking tour last year I took, Connie. What are your plans for this year?
This year we're going to continue the, thank you, by the way. We're going to continue the architecture tour, the historic Holland tour that was very popular. With my background in historic preservation, we were able to kind of do a really fun kind of pop quiz element of walking tours where we talked about and learned about historic architecture. We're looking at maybe doing a women's history tour with strong women of the community of the past, and some other things as well. We're going to continue the fire walk, but with new sources and you know, just really anything that we can find a lot of information on. So if there's any suggestions for a tour, or also maybe looking at doing something in Park Township or Holland Township, kind of trying to get away from the center Holland core and get out there a little more. Yeah.
Have you done the cemetery tours, or is that a community member? I would be interested in that.
She said, have we done the cemetery tours, or is that a community member? We had a cemetery tour in October, but we're definitely looking at doing some more of them. They're always really popular, so. Any other questions?
Well, Connie, we're so glad that you came to Holland.
Thank you so much.
And don't forget as you leave that Connie does have material for you to pick up. Also, if you didn't get the notes for Hope College, they're there. And the third thing is that we made up a list of some recently published books by local authors about Holland topics. And speaking of books and local authors, remember when Elisa Crawford was here last week and she asked you to stand up and pretend to be a windmill? That might be a good idea because you've been sitting for a while. So if you care to stand up, you can. And Elisa wanted me to tell you that her book is available at Reader's World. It is very exciting and has a lot of information, good information about the mill, which she knows so well. So if you'd like to stretch a little bit, you can stand up for a few minutes.
I moved to 9:30 to 11:30. Yeah. Tuesday, Thursday. I'm trying to wait. She likes it. Yeah. She actually opened up because it's on Christmas. She really likes it. She Every family wants to start. Thanks for looking out for me.
And now it's time to get started with our third and last speaker. But do be sure to come up here and pick up the materials before you leave after our last speaker. And also there's some books that you can look at over there too that are on your book list. Our last speaker today is Dale Weingarten. Dale was born in Petoskey and raised just south of Chicago. He came to Holland in 1960 to attend Hope, and he stayed. He graduated with a sociology major, and after a stint in the Army, started work for the City of Holland. First as inspector, then as city planner, and finally as director of community services, a department that included planning, engineering, downtown development, historic preservation, and community development. He retired 12 years ago after 37 years of work and began a second career as full-time grandpa and part-time family handyman. As you probably know, Dale writes an excellent column once a month for the Sentinel, and his column on downtown Holland was in last week's paper on Wednesday. We're looking forward to hearing more about our downtown from you.
So are you going to wire me? Oh, yeah, that's good. Okay. You just do it, I trust you. Okay. Oh, that's good, thank you. Down. Okay, I think I have one picture, just one. That's right. I'll start looking. Yeah, there it is. Okay, that's it. That's downtown is really a story of survival in the face of some really serious headwinds over the last 50 years or so. My exposure to downtown started in 1960. I came to Holland to go to Hope, went out looking for a part-time job and found one waiting tables down at the Warm Friend Hotel. Holland Furnaces Make Warm Friends was the slogan of the Holland Furnace Company. It's a company that dominated the local economy for the first half of the last century. In its heyday, it also made a lot of money. In 1925, it built a hotel downtown, one of our true landmark properties, and it's been landmark for 90 years downtown. By 1960, when I came, the furnace company had self-destructed, killed itself mostly through illicit sales practices, among other things. The hotel was still hanging on, but barely, because change was coming to the area. In the late 1950s, the highway department had built a bypass around Holland. From the start of the national highway system, the highway from Chicago to Grand Rapids and all of West Michigan, came down through the middle of our downtown, down River Avenue, out 8th Street to Chicago Drive. The bypass shifted all of that traffic, main highway traffic, out to farmland around the edge of town, and relegated our downtown to sort of a business route. With the bypass, with the open land, came a whole lot of opportunity for new development. And among the first things to move out to the bypass were motels. Americans had changed their way of traveling. When the hotel was built downtown, there was no parking lot. People came by train. In fact, I don't think in 1960 there was even a parking lot. But by 1960, we were falling in love with our cars. We liked to travel and stay near the highway. We liked to stay in a place with a big parking lot. And if we were lucky, we could park our car right outside the door of the place we slept. And national chains, motel chains, were sprouting up in a big way throughout the country. You might remember 32nd and the Bypass. It's a vacant lot now, but one of the first motels was a Holiday Inn with a very, very ugly sign. It didn't take long before Days Inn built across the street from it. Cecil Day was a teetotaler and wouldn't have any liquor in his motels, but he was also a businessman, and he liked to position his motels across from one that maybe had a cocktail lounge and stuff. So they wound up across from Holiday Inn. Across the road you have Comfort Inn. If you get on to 24th Street, what's now Doubletree was our second Days Inn in town, or our second Holiday Inn. Behind it is sort of a sleep cheap. It's called Baymont Inn. Now it changes name every couple of years. But you have a microtel down near the Social Security office. Down 16th, the Wooden Shoe, Economy Inn. Go out to the north side near Felch Street, and more recently, as that picture isn't much, is it? As development progressed north on the highway, motels continued out there. Holiday Inn number 3, Hampton Inn, Fairfield Inn, Best Western, Value Place. It didn't take all of these to kill the hotel downtown. Probably the first one did it. The traffic had moved out there, the way of our travel had changed. The hotel couldn't meet the needs of American traveling public. It closed in the mid-1960s, and the Vanette brothers in town here, I think, bought it and were converting it into apartments for about 10 years before Rest Haven picked it up in 1981 and converted it to senior citizen housing. Along, almost in lockstep with the motels, restaurants started developing out along the Bypass. And I'd be curious if anybody remembers one of the very first ones on the south end of town. It's where McDonald's sits now across from, did somebody say it? Howard Johnson, hallelujah. Clam rolls, 28 flavors. At one time, it was the biggest restaurant chain in America with over 1,000 restaurants. I Googled it the other day, and I think there are 2 of them left out east now. But you move down the highway and take a look at Lincoln Avenue. You got Russ's Southtown. The Holiday Inn had a restaurant in it, a pretty decent one at 32nd. Across the road was Ponderosa, now the Shanghai restaurant. In the party store at that intersection, we had a Chinese restaurant and some other country, some restaurant. Goog's is down by Social Security. Holiday Inn number 2 at 24th Street had a pretty good restaurant. It's still there in Doubletree now. Out front you had Bill Knapp's, across the road Bob Evans, Denny's, China King Inn down at 16th Street. L&K preceded Burger King at that location. Before there was Boston Market, there were a couple of restaurants there. You had the Wooden Shoe up the hill. And then as development progressed again to the north side, look at the explosion of restaurants up in that direction. Dutch Village, Steak and Shake, Perkins, Pizza Hut, Wild Chef, Wild Wings, China Inn, Carino's, Culver's, Panera, Fat Burrito, Dairy Queen, Qdoba, Panda Express, Logan's, Bagger Days, Red Robin. Forgive me for not memorizing these, but Five Guys, Taco Bell, All Rancho, Zupo, Charlie's, Petrino's, Applebee's, IHOP's, Crazy Horse Brands, Salt and Pepper. National franchise restaurants had their own architectural identity, and they liked this drive-up service, drive-through, or card service at the curb. But especially what they wanted were parking lots big enough for all their employees and all of their customers for a full restaurant. You couldn't aggregate land downtown to provide this kind of restaurant. You could when you're developing farmland out along the highway. I know I missed some restaurants. I didn't even begin to count the burger places up there, the McDonald's and Burger Kings. I didn't mention the mall. When West Shore Mall opened, do you remember there were 4 restaurants in the mall and 2 on the grounds? You had Walk House and Sabero's inside, J.J. Finnegan's, and Mr. Fable's. On the grounds next to the mall, you had Jose Babushka and Red Lobster. I mean, talk about poised for success. When you look at that aggregation of restaurants just in the mall, you say, how could it fail? Meanwhile, downtown, we hung on to a few like Skiles, Pizza Hut, Windmill, Fricano's. We lost a few during that era, like Vogue, Comerford, Copper Kettle, Hitching Post, Izzy's, Mr. Steak, Pietros. We gained a few, 8th Street Grill, 84 East, Butch's, Alpenrose, more recently Carra and New Holland Brewery. But clearly the casual dining movement was toward the open spaces on the highway, the big sites, parking lots, the buildings with distinct architecture. The biggest challenge was yet to come with the Malling of America. The first mall in the country was opened in Evergreen Park, south of Chicago in 1952. It was a wonder to behold. It was 100 stores on a sea of asphalt. Parking was free. You have to remember that that was an age where almost every downtown was filled with parking meters. People from all over the Chicago area came to just behold this wondrous new way of shopping. But not for long, because before you knew it, malls were cropping up in the backyard of almost every urban area in America. And very often those malls were the kiss of death to downtown retailing. We sang at church this year, Christmas hymn, People Look East. People look east here to Grand Rapids. And remember, if you grew up here in the 1950s or 60s, you probably shopped at places downtown like Herpelsheimer's, Würzburg's, what was the third one? Stecker's, thank you. Family department stores dominated downtown urban America. But in 1967, Eastbrook opened. 1968, Woodland Mall opened, and several more since then. The old downtown stores tried to hang on. Sometimes Stecker's moved into the malls and tried to compete there, but they couldn't compete with the national chains, and little by little they withered away. So did retailing in downtown Grand Rapids. The city's done a great job of reinventing itself as a culinary center, entertainment center, educational, medical center, a cultural center, but you don't go downtown to shop anymore. The malls just did in downtown Grand Rapids. After the big cities were all mauled out, the developers started looking at secondary markets like Holland, and we were in the crosshairs. Between 1970 and 85, I think there were 5 different mall proposals for the city of Holland, fairly serious ones. The idea of a mall is one thing, building it is another. You really need to own property or have an option. You need a pretty firm plan in order to market it to tenants and investors. You need firm commitments from your anchor stores and other interior stores, and you need financing. So while malls were being floated in this area, something else was happening. Strip centers were being developed. The old original Family Fair was a neighborhood grocery about 18th and Van Raalte. The second Family Fair was up at 32nd and Lincoln, and with it came some satellite stores. The old Family Fair is a church, so is the bank that was built on that site, but you still see up there Paul's Pharmacy and Ace Hardware, remnants of the surrounding development. The third Family Fair was at 40th and Washington. Again, that has become a church now, but there are about a half a dozen satellite stores around there. The only one I can think of is the fireworks store, but the last family fair in the south end, if you shop there, you know that's still open. It hasn't become a church yet. But there are probably a dozen or so small shops around that family fair. There was a family fair at Waverly Road in Chicago Drive. It's now the Farm Implement Store. It had several little shops next to it, Baker Bookhouse and Pizza Place, but looking across the driveway, you had Family Fair and Frank's Nursery and Craft. Businesses like this started nibbling away at the downtown market in a serious way. Up on 24th Street, W.T. Grant was, I don't think, ever a threat to anybody, but there was a store up there called Whitmark that was a fabulous store. I mean, head to head with stores like Tierman's downtown. So while malls were being floated as ideas, satellite stores from strip malls were already eating away at the Holland downtown market. Finally, in the late 1980s, a Canadian company called Bramley succeeded in putting together West Shore Mall. They announced the 4 anchor stores for that mall. Prangies, which was later bought out by Yonkers, Steckity, Sears, and Penny's. Where did Steckity, Sears, and Penny's come from? Downtown Holland. They had been mainstay anchor stores in downtown for years, now moving out to the new mall. The mall was full of good stores. I mean, it started out with great vitality. They were all national chain stores, bright, beautiful. It was no architectural masterpiece, but there was vitality in the mall when it began. And if that wasn't enough, across the street we had an outlet mall. And that also, I mean, it was a lousy layout for a mall, but it started full of stores, good stores. Eddie Bauer, Bass Shoes, Kitchen Collection, just good stores. Well, we're going to jump ahead 28 years and look at the malls now. Both of them have fizzled. They've fizzled badly. I forget when the outlet mall died. It was a long time ago. West Shore has died more slowly. If you look at it today, there's a fence around it. They're trying to carve it out, reduce the size of the mall, turn it into a strip mall, and hope they can breathe some life back into it. I can't do a post-mortem. I don't know why the malls have failed. But in the meantime, downtown has thrived. And I've got some thoughts on why it succeeded that I'll share with you. When the bypass was built, it left us downtown with the remnant of a highway that was 4 lanes wide, plus 2 lanes of parking, six lanes downtown, and little skinny sidewalks. It was an ugly place to drive, but it was even uglier for pedestrians. So in 1971, we created a one-way street system, got the bulk of the traffic off 8th Street, and opened it up to some redevelopment opportunities. Those came in 1974 by way of a streetscape project. We reduced traffic downtown to 1 lane, widened out the sidewalks, planted trees, built planter boxes, planted tulips, and put benches downtown, and really turned it from a highway character to a pedestrian-friendly character. While this was happening, the downtown merchants took a look at the parking situation. Our downtown streets and lots were lined with parking meters. They knew they couldn't compete with the malls or even the strip centers with meters. So thanks to the leadership of a few, if you know Keith Ditch, slap him on the back and thank him for free parking, because he was a real ringleader in bringing about an assessment formula where the merchants assess themselves to pay for free parking and we benefit from it. No parking is really free. Somebody's got to pay to keep the system going. But it was a progressive step on the part of the merchants. We had a strong merchants association downtown, had for years a good strong DDA. That led us into affiliating with the National Main Street program. We hired a good manager. Greg Robinson was hired to be the downtown manager. We've had good managers since then. And I think the whole idea of good management has contributed to success. A second streetscape project was planned in 1988 to coincide. It was sort of our counterpunch to the mall opening. What can we do to bolster downtown? We had the thing all drawn up and dried, and Ed Prince came along and said you ought to put streetscape downtown. Ed knew how to make it happen. The force of carry, he only knew one way when he had an idea, and that was straightforward. He backed it with financing. He brought in some expertise that helped convince people it wasn't a harebrained idea. So we tore up downtown with a second streetscape project. And really adding streetscape, I think, put us on the national map as unique for downtowns. I suspect today we're probably still the biggest downtown with snowmelt in a downtown in America. In 1985, the Prince family bought their first business. It was the old Steckity building downtown, which is where Butch's Dry Dock is. The next year, they bought the Tower Clock building. Since then, they bought, I can't begin to count, a dozen, they have 2 dozen. Everything they touched has turned out for the better. If you lived here long, you remember when the Tower Clock building had the Salvation Army outlet store in it. I remember an era where there was a pinball parlor in it. The owner, before Prince, thought it was a derelict building, wanted to tear it down and make room for something new. The Prince family bought it, renovated it inside, outside, put an elevator in, brought it up to code, and then put in a magnificent store. If you don't shop at Home and Company, you ought to try it. Just go into experience. See what kind of contribution. And what they did there is kind of a metaphor for every other building they touched in downtown. Really helped it. Ed Prince said, I'm not going it alone, and he recruited some other people in town that all bought into something called the Riverview Partnership. I think they sold shares at $100,000 a piece, and had a lot of people invest with the idea of investing in downtown. Their first undertaking was building something called the Curtis Center down at 6th Street and College Avenue, beautiful two-story office building. The first building, new building of any substance built downtown in decades. A year later, 1990, the Prince family built this building, 100 East. It was the first movement easterly in downtown renovation. It's the building we're in right now. You remember what used to be here? Burger King. Holly Nordheiss's antique shop is below us here. This sort of set the stage for, I'm getting this, forgive me, set the stage for what happened across the street. You remember across the street, they sold tombstones, the farmer co-op in the middle of the block. Look at the streetscape across when you leave today, what's happened to downtown. Sketchy neighborhood over 6th and Columbia got torn down. 348 new residences built. Upscale apartments, upscale residents that come downtown, shop, they're good for downtown. Hope College started moving toward downtown. They used to be a block away. Now with the Hayworth Inn, they're on the edge of downtown. They're part of downtown. They own this. They're preserving the theater next door. The old car dealership next door is owned by the college and will be something grand and great. And then they continued all the way east down to that old foundry and just turned the eastern end of downtown from a real south here into a silk purse with the redevelopment there. Hotels, restaurants returned to downtown. So did residents. There's been a whole rediscovery of the inner city as a nice place to live. Upstairs apartments that used to be derelict or abandoned are now prime apartments. People that own apartments have waiting lists for downtown residences. And then finally, the downtown businesses adapted, innovated, and persevered. We became a shopping place. We became a celebration place. Who would have ever thought in the Renaissance of downtown that you'd have a Greek family making Irish stew in the center of a Dutch community, that a brewery and a wine tasting room would be part of the Renaissance of downtown, but they all made their contribution. Okay, trolley guides. This is what it's about, isn't it? Trolley guides. You're going to look at 24 people on the trolley when you get on the trolley next spring, and they aren't going to care about all this background. So what are you going to tell them? You're going to tell them we have 2 hotels downtown, plus the Hayworth Inn, and the next time they come to Holland, they don't have to stay out with the trucks on the highway. They can stay downtown. It's a fun place. You can point out the Cara and the brewery, and tell them we have fun places to eat. And entertainment at night. We don't roll up the sidewalks at 5 o'clock anymore like we used to. You can point out the buildings downtown, the magnificent architecture that we've preserved, some of the beautiful terracotta facades on our downtown buildings. Show them the great mix of retailers we have. They can see for themselves there are no empty stores, but point out the great mix of retailers. Tell them about Snowmelt and how they come back in Christmas next year to do their Christmas shopping. It's a fabulous place to come in the wintertime. Tell them in the summertime we have fun. We have downtown entertainment, street performances. You've got 2 blocks where you've got their attention. By the time you turn off 8th Street at Model Drug, you've had an opportunity to make everybody on that bus wish they lived in downtown Holland. Go do it. Questions?
So is some of this development ever going to go west so we can get our waterfront back from the industry?
Is development ever going to go west?
With the old power plant.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I meant in terms of heavy industry that's on the water. It really isn't a real attractive thing for our city.
No, it isn't. All old cities developed, well, first of all, the waterfront was there for transportation, not for rich people to build big homes when the city was founded. And yet, a place like Heinz liked to be there because they could wash their pickles and put the wash water back in. It was a disposal place. Times have changed. Yes, I think the power plant will give us an opportunity. I don't think we know yet what that will be. The focus really now, with the great investment GDK is proposing to move 8th Street west, is to kind of follow that corridor on down. And I think in due times, if we come up with a good plan with the Civic Center, it will not only go this way toward the lake, but it'll be going this way as well. It'll take time, though.
I know that many times there's a parking issue, both downtown and on Hope College campus.
Yes.
Do we have any jurisdiction over parking requirements that they provide with all these new facilities on Hope College campus? Or are there any plans for further parking downtown?
There is a formula for the college that says you need so much parking. It doesn't specify exactly where it is. The problem is it's easier for them to go over to Siberia and build parking than it is to buy downtown properties and turn them into parking lots. If you picked up the paper this morning, you'd see that council last night authorized a parking study. Yes, it's an issue. It's an issue for you here. I mean, when you come today, there must be a parking problem. Imagine 2 or 3 months from now when that hotel opens up across the road and is 70% full. It's a good problem for a community to have. If you're going to have a parking problem, I'd rather have the one we have here than the one my hometown has, where there's no downtown left. It's being addressed. It's a hard nut to crack because we're at a point where to build parking, we almost have to talk ramps. And building a parking ramp, you're talking $20,000 a parking space now. So it doesn't come quickly, but yeah, it's in the mill.
Is there an overnight parking restriction downtown on 8th Street?
I believe there is. I think that there is a provision for downtown residents to get a parking permit for certain lots downtown. But the whole idea is if they live downtown and if they're gonna park downtown, get your car out of that lot during business hours so that that space becomes available for merchants. And even policing stuff like that is a challenge.
Right at 11 o'clock, is it, whoops, excuse me, quick question?
Maybe this is not a quick question, but on parks and green spaces, I know there's going to be a bit of a park at the new heating plant.
Yeah, I'd like to interject a minute before everybody starts to leave. I want you to thank Alice for her work in this whole.
Thanks to our wonderful speakers, and thank you so much, Dale, your expertise and your knowledge of our fantastic downtown and how it got to be that way. Really appreciate it.
It is great. Tell everybody you know. Downtown Holland is alive and great.
Okay.